RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, opinions, or statements of its guests, advertisers, or of its viewers. The information contained on this program is not to be construed as medical or legal advice. An appearance on this show is not necessarily an endorsement, and as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good afternoon, Patriots, and welcome to a special early edition of Comfy Sunday. As always, I'm your host, RP. Joining me live in the studio, my good friend and co-host, M3, and our special guest for the evening at 7 p.m., Zak Mcelroy, another Facebook whistleblower brought to us through the efforts of James O'Keefe and Project Veritas. I hope everyone's having a beautiful day. It is sunny. It is gorgeous. A little hot, but not to worry. I hope all of our Patriots in the North Carolina area are okay. I saw that there was a 5.1 magnitude earthquake. I heard from a couple of different people from all parts of the state, said they felt it. We've got some excellent stories to go over today, but as always, we're going to be keeping it comfy. Do me a favor, everyone. Sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back after a brief word from our sponsor. How do you think you'd react if your internet activity was released to the public? Well, users of several VPNs are experiencing what that's like right now. See, several VPNs kept millions of users' logs public for the entire internet to see. The VPNs are based in Hong Kong, China, but millions of affected users are based here in the United States. Those that care about their privacy need a VPN with a strict no-log policy to prevent disasters like this from happening to them. That's why I choose Virtual Shield VPN. Virtual Shield has a strict no-log policy so your internet activity is truly private. Virtual Shield's network is fast, reliable, secure, and it's always available. Let me show you guys how easy it is. Alright, so here we are. We'll go to what is my IP. You can see it's right there. Now, when I connect to Virtual Shield, that will mask my actual location, and it now shows that I am here in Chicago, Illinois, and my location is secure. Now, due to the recent pandemic, Virtual Shield is offering its services for 50% off to help customers in need protect themselves, as well as a free 30-day trial. Go to my special website, virtualshield.com/redpill78, or click the link in the video description or pinned comment below and experience for yourself why thousands choose Virtual Shield as their VPN. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. Welcome back, Patriots. Thank you so much for joining us today on this special early edition of Comfy Sunday. Methods, how are you today, brother?
Man, I'm doing good, considering the circumstances of a pretty crazy week.
Yeah.
Dealing with a bunch of random censorship issues, but that's fine. We all knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I hope everybody in the chat's doing well, and if you guys don't mind letting everybody know on social media that we are starting earlier today, obviously, because of the Bill Barr interview with Mark Levin. But yeah, right after that, make sure you guys turn it over to Fox News, because that's going to be definitely an interesting interview.
Heck yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and retweet one more time. Go now live. But yes, please, you guys, if you can help us out, it would really, really be a big assist. I saw a couple people already a little bit confused in the chat. We announced this, we announced it on Thursday that we were going to do it early. So maybe, I guess that's our bad. But better late than never. We want to be able to support our Attorney General. Bill Barr is doing good work there at the Department of Justice, and I am myself looking forward to being able to watch that interview. Now, as I said in the intro, our special guest at 7 p.m. is part 2 of our Project Veritas Facebook Whistleblower series. Zach Mcelroy, another former employee on Facebook's content moderation team, is going to be here. We're going to be talking about Facebook's culture of censorship, shall we say. Don't forget, Mark Zuckerberg was just referred criminally by Matt Gaetz of Florida. So Mark Zuckerberg might be looking at some criminal charges. And we're going to be talking to Zach about all of that and more. I want to say thank you very much to everybody who's in the chat, keeping it comfy. Thank you to the mods. I saw Wheezy, Jojo, Real Red Pill Mom, Real Red Pill Girlfriend, Love You Honey, Leslie, and anybody else who's here. Oh, Table of Titans Hulkinator. I also saw him here too. So thanks again, guys, for being here. Now, we had a bunch of great stuff happen this week, but then we also had some disturbing stuff. Methods, you want to tell people what happened to your account just in case maybe they're not on Twitter or they didn't see any of the tweets?
Right. I mean, I got a lot of people get this. So I don't feel necessarily special about it, but I had sent out a tweet and the page just flipped its screen and told me that some of my, actions that I could do on Twitter were limited and they said that I was doing spam when I don't nearly tweet as much as a lot of other people do.
Yeah.
So I find that interesting, but I did kind of retweet something about HCQ. And then I also talked about our favorite Anon in the following tweet. So I'm not surprised about that. Maybe I was just seeing what would happen. But they said, I couldn't retweet and like stuff for 3 days, but I was able to in the next few hours. So I don't know what's going on. Twitter's a dumpster fire.
Okay. Somebody asked if there's any way I could put the right start time in your listing, i.e. 6 p.m. Eastern. Well, it's generally at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's only 6 p.m. tonight because there is an interview with Attorney General Barr. Anybody, if you have any questions about the schedule on the channel, Monday through Thursday, the show's going to come out somewhere between 5 and 6 p.m. Eastern. You can always count on that. Friday nights, it's 10 p.m. Eastern. Saturday nights, it's 9 p.m. Eastern. And generally on Sundays, it's 7 p.m. Eastern. Tonight it was 6 p.m. Now, if you don't live in an Eastern time zone, then YouTube is going to show you what time it starts in your time zone. So all you got to do is look at what time it says it's actually going to start, and that'll be the same for you. And then you can go ahead and make sure that you're here on time. If you're not here on time, you can always watch the replay, or you can just rewind it a little bit and hang out with us. But with the censorship happening, with Methods getting his count limited, with all the Patriots we lost this past week, it's a very timely interview that we're going to be having with Zach in the second hour, because as we get closer to the election, it's undoubtedly only going to get worse. So everybody, I would, number one, recommend that this is not just me plugging my sponsor, but make sure that you have a VPN, because when you start a new account, you're going to want to do it from an IP address that is not your regular IP address where you're currently accessing Twitter from. By using the VPN, you can make it look like your location is some other place in the world. There's also some other things you should do. You're going to want to make sure that you completely delete Twitter from your phone. Make sure that you delete the cache. And you also need to make sure you start it with a different email address. And you are also more than likely going to need another phone number, because if your phone number that's on your regular phone was attached to that first Twitter account that got deleted, you're not going to be able to use it again, because they're automatically going to know that it's you. So there's a number of different places that you can get voice over IP numbers where you can accept text messages and get calls and stuff. So if you follow all of those things, and then probably don't use the same name or the same avatar or the same background, because they're going to know it's you if you do that stuff too. So keep all of those things in mind, but I think the easiest and most important one is to make sure that you're using a VPN to connect, because if you've been deleted from Twitter and they say that you cannot start an account anymore, your IP address is going to be blacklisted. The alternative is talking to your internet service provider and perhaps getting a new IP address, but that's not something that they necessarily want to do. But let's start off here with some of the stories that happen. I mean, I think the biggest... Well, go ahead.
Yeah, we definitely need to talk about the EOs. I see you out there, Joe. We're going to talk about the tax holiday stuff. Yeah. Actually, are we getting into that right now?
That's where I was going, yeah.
All right, yeah. Well, we got you, Joe, out there. Don't you worry about it.
So this is, in my mind, the biggest news of the year so far. President Trump, after Congress was gridlocked and unable to come to an agreement on an additional stimulus package because, let's be honest, the Democrats wanted to throw in a whole bunch of pork, stuff that had nothing to do with CV-19, nothing to do with making sure that Americans were able to meet their obligations. President Trump decided to go nuclear and sign an executive order. Now, the executive order specifically extends the unemployment benefits, albeit at a reduced amount, which I honestly think is a good thing, because there were a lot of people, plenty of Americans, who were not going back to work because the unemployment benefits they were getting were better than perhaps what they were going to get at their job. So what did you say? It was something like $2,400 a month, Method, $600 a week?
Yeah, it was $600 a week, as I understand it. And I know in different places, cost of living are different. But down here in the South, you give somebody $600 a week, especially if you have like a roommate or something like that.
Yeah.
If you're splitting rental costs or whatever, like you would be fine. Like there would be no motivation at all to work. Like you couldn't get further in life on that per se, but it would definitely motivate you to not go take a job that you just don't want to do, because most of us don't like, jobs that we take. It's a means to an end. So if you can get paid to sit at home and they tell you it's for your safety, they justify it in your head, they're trying to keep people out of work. And it's a part of all the narrative stuff against the president. So it's sickening.
All right. And Peter just sent me another email. He said that I missed the point. The listing said 10 p.m. If the listing said 10 p.m., then that was not me. I set it for 6 p.m., so YouTube's playing games. So if anybody was confused as a result of that, obviously I'm sorry, but I set it for 6 p.m. So continuing...
My Roku,
yeah.
When I see your show, that's supposed to be it would be like at 9 p.m. my time, for example, Eastern or Central. It'll say on Roku 2 a.m.
Okay.
And so it makes no sense. Especially because everybody knows it's been following my chaos on my channel here, trying to get my show off the ground. YouTube doesn't, you would think it would function better, right?
Right.
as long as they've been doing it, how much money they have pumped into it. But they, cause a lot of problems. So I'm not surprised about the time stuff.
No, I'm not either. And that's not the first time I've heard that. So, Peter, I don't know if you're on Roku or something like that. But, definitely it was set for 6 p.m. But either way, regardless, it doesn't even matter. Because if you guys just remember the schedule, remember the times that the shows are going to start, then you can make sure you're here every time. And we won't have any issues. If we are going to be starting the show at a different time, we're going to do our best to let you guys know ahead of time. Because obviously, I want you all here. But continuing on with the executive order, he's also instituted a payroll tax holiday. So that is the taxes that are split between you and your employer. So that's Medicare and Social Security. That's what 7.25% of your income. It makes up that tax. So that's a pretty big thing, and it starts for I believe the entire month of July. So it's retroactive, going back to July 1st through the rest of the year. And he also said that there's a distinct possibility that they may extend that out into the future. Now, of course, the Democrats are not happy about that. They're phrasing it as if the president is going after Medicare and Social Security, trying to defund them, apparently. But he's also deferring student loan payments, which is great. I have student loan payments that are in deferment right now as a result of what's happening. And then he's also extending the federal moratorium on evictions, which is one of the most important things. Because you've got a large number of Americans who, as a result of this manufactured crisis, they've been unable to work. They've been unable to get any money to pay their loans, or to pay their mortgages, to pay their rent. I don't know, Methods, and maybe you do, but does this moratorium on evictions, does that cover homeowners as well? So if people are unable to pay their mortgage, they're also going to not have to worry about getting evicted?
A lot of the stuff I heard had to do with the rent and stuff. Maybe the chat can help us out with that. Give us a one if it also helps the housing stuff as well, because I haven't had to look into it personally, so I'm not too sure and all that. And also, you were talking about the payroll tax holiday being retroactive.
Yeah.
And I think you said July, but someone in the chat said it, and I agree with them. I believe it's the start of August.
Start of August. Okay. When I was quoting, I guess, before the official executive order came out about POTUS. Somebody had said at that time that they were talking about doing it, that they were looking at starting it in July.
Valerie in the chat is saying he wanted July, but he said August 1st. And in the chat, a lot of people are saying 1. So, yes, it does cover the housing as well.
Okay.
Homeowners.
Okay, that's great. That's good news. Now, I saw BJ McPhail in the chat said that he is scheduled to be evicted. So, BJ, 100% so grateful for President Trump making sure that he got this signed so that you're not going to go ahead and get evicted. But Febra May says, I would think eviction and foreclosures are completely different. I don't, I mean, they are technically in terms of the exact definition, but it would make sense that they would cover both because, I mean, you have a lot of homeowners out there who are unable to pay their mortgage. So why would they only favor the renters? And then think about it this way. You've got people paying rent to people who own the homes. And if the homeowners are not getting rent, then how are they supposed to pay their mortgage? That's going to put them in a really strange position. So hopefully it does cover both. It looks like a lot of people think that they do. Now, the Democrats, as a result of the president's executive order, they have vowed to sue him, which is just a stunning development. I mean, I'm not surprised at all, a little tongue-in-cheek there. But the Democrats are firmly going against the best interest of the American people. Why? Because this is good for the American people. President Trump is doing things that actually help Americans rather than making decisions against the betterment of the American public. And as a result, you can bet there's going to be maybe some people who are on the fence who are going to say, you know what? President Trump took action. He saved me. He saved my home so that I didn't have to get evicted, so that I could feed my children. Of course, I'm going to vote for him in November, right?
Yeah, but I mean, part of the tactic that we get from the Democrats is if Trump is taking America further and being stronger, building the economy, and that's his platform, and this is the election year, they have to do the exact opposite and cause problems, be the wrench in the machine. And having him tied up in court trying to do these kind of things, it's not surprising. It is sickening. This is probably one of the worst ones. I mean, I can understand them wanting to remove him from office, even though the whole guise of Ukraine and all that stuff there was nothing there. But this has to do with Trump taking action to take care of the American people during this time. There's a lot of people. We've talked to a lot of people about what they're going through financially and stuff because of this virus. And for them to be like, no, we're going to tie this, even just they'll probably lose, is still sickening because they're trying to, kick the can down the road and make people think I'm not doing well. My life isn't together. Trump is not helping me because CNN told me so. I'm going to vote for somebody else. You could see but it's that bad. I mean, let the people have their help. Let them have their tax money back to be able to do things,
Yeah. So now Randy in the chat said that this is the tax holiday is a deferment. So are you saying that people are going to have to go back and pay back all those taxes that they didn't have to pay? I feel like that's going to be something that's a real burden on Americans if at a certain point they're going to just have, all that money collected again. Also, Space Shot's in the chat. What's up, Space Shot? Good to see you, brother. Have you heard anything about that, Methods?
No, as I understand it, it's going to be a forgiven situation. But this just came out yesterday. Yeah. I still want to look into it over the next few days. Yeah, no deferment, all that. And he does want to make it permanent and all that stuff. Now, JLA Anon in the chat says, remember Supreme Court John Roberts said POTUS was not able to cancel DACA, as in the situation that Obama set up. So no future president can end POTUS executive orders. And that's where we're going here. So thank you for bringing that up, JLA. I've got a tweet here in front of me, if you're going to pull it up, Red Pill, from Colonel Rob Manis. All right. And he says, when the judicial branch didn't rule the DACA EO unconstitutional, they opened the door for it today. So the fact that they allowed it in the Supreme Court, and you remember it was controversial when it happened, about DACA saying that it can stand, then Trump's EO yesterday is in the same vein.
Mm-hmm.
He can do that, and now there's precedent. So them suing, I see the question out there that was asked a little bit earlier, can they sue him? I guess hypothetically you can, because you could take it to court and try to make a thing out of it. But if it gets all the way to the Supreme Court, whether it's in lower courts and works its way up, how it has before with other times they've gone after the president, there is precedent there that can be shown. And they can say, all right, well, we did it for this one. We have to do it for this because this is the law.
That's right. They've set the precedent. The Democrats forced that in court, and now they are not going to be successful in having this undone. President Trump is taking action. I mean, this is why he has the power of the pen. We have that famous quote from Barack Obama. I have a pen, and in the executive privilege, I can do whatever I want, basically. And so, I mean, that was a paraphrase, but that was essentially what he did. Gene S. says the payroll tax holiday only affects people that make less than $100,000. So, yeah, I guess if you're lucky enough to make over $100,000, then you're not going to be affected. But obviously, we'll have to verify all of these things. It is a developing situation. But I think that President Trump's executive orders are going to stand. I don't think the Democrats are going to be able to do anything about it. And this actually leads us into our next story, because as a result of another executive order President Trump signed earlier in the week, which forbids American companies from doing business with a couple of different Chinese companies. That would be ByteDance, which is the controlling interest in TikTok. And then there's another one called WeChat. American companies cannot do business with them, which means in 45 days, which was cute because he's the 45th president, 45 days from the day he signed the executive order, a variety of Chinese apps are going to have to stop doing business here in the United States. So that means either they just, they're no longer going to be available in the app stores, they're going to be gone. And the idea is that there are American companies who want to negotiate to purchase those interests from those Chinese companies so that they can continue to do business here in the United States. But in the meantime, TikTok, which is essentially the Chinese Communist Party, they are planning on filing a lawsuit against President Trump as a result of this executive order. Now, going back to the precedent that's been set about the executive orders in the court, I don't believe they're going to be successful. President Trump said it. He wrote the executive order. Therefore, it shall be done. They're not going to win. And if somebody isn't able to negotiate a deal with TikTok or any of these other Chinese companies to purchase that interest, then unfortunately, they're just not going to be able to do business here in the United States anymore. And there is a whole bunch of TikTok personalities who have a lot of fun making dance and song videos that are no longer going to have a career. It's a bummer for them, obviously, but we don't need these Chinese applications doing business, stealing American data and then putting it back into the coffers of the Chinese Communist Party.
Right. And I mean, it can go further. I know that there's been reports on how that specific executive order can go even further, because who owns, TikTok and all when it goes into Tencent. And Tencent is a company that I've been looking into the last day or so, kind of loosely. And they're involved in a lot of stuff, man. I don't have a list in front of me, but yeah, Reddit would be one of them. They're heavily tied in the video game industry, for example. They own a lot of things. I think they own like at least controlling shares or decent shares in things like Ubisoft, stuff like that. So they said, no, the CEO is just going to be used for this, that, this situation when it comes to WeChat, TikTok stuff. But if you take it further, which you can in the wording of the EO, all they would have to do is give reasoning and say, oh, well, we've already got this EO, executive order we signed on the shelf. Let's just go ahead and use that too. And that can basically cause, stop a lot of this, financial back dealings, this, that it's going on, this money moving around by these companies that are technically enemies of the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
So, because when I was thinking about it, when I was watching that and seeing how big and how far, Tencent was, had their tentacles and stuff, there's so much corruption in theory. If you want to talk about the head of a snake being Tencent, being corrupt, there's so much dealings that affect so many different economies alone. When I talk about video games, that's an entire industry now.
Oh, yeah.
There's people that, I mean, have you ever looked up how much these online streamers, like these gamers, make?
Yeah, I mean, just, as an example, Dr. Disrespect or Ninja. I mean, they had multi-million-dollar contracts with Twitch just to exclusively stream there. And then another one, I can't remember what it was called, Mixer. Mixer was owned by Microsoft. They signed up Ninja for like a $20 million contract, and then they ceased operations because they couldn't get people to go over there. But yeah, those people make a ridiculous amount of money. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, so if you take it into those aspects of like, what if some of these major gaming companies end up becoming, a target in the executive order because of illegal dealings that, if we want justice to be served in that case, then they aren't making games anymore for a while. Kind of like how Hollywood can't make movies, because of everything being shut down and how much they're hurting. It would go in that route. And then people like the TikTok dancers would be the gamers now, wouldn't be able to do any of the new ones over time. I mean, you could see the ripple effect of fixing these things. So this whole wheels of justice turning slow, in general, it's that infiltrated. And because, I mean, it's not like any of us say, well, if Hillary got in, 5 more presidents after that, then we would be screwed. We all could pretty much see the writing on the wall. We were screwed the day that she was sworn in, if that happened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and going back to the, other companies doing business with Chinese entities, I mean, specifically, I said this the other day, but when Secretary of State Pompeo called out Disney, the fact that in their Shanghai operations, they have executives who are members of the Chinese Communist Party, Disney is in a lot of trouble right now. I mean, they haven't been able to have their parks running at capacity. They're paying more each day to have these parks in operation than they are receiving in visitors. Obviously, none of their movies are able to come out. They've had to push everything back, and now Mulan is going to be released on like a video on demand through Disney Plus, and that does some damage to the industry, and it upsets everything. If these companies are no longer able to release their films in the movie theater and they have to go through a home video on demand release schedule, it cuts billions of dollars off of their bottom line. But if China has a controlling interest in the Disney operations, and Disney is told that you can't do business, and they've already literally been told that they shouldn't be doing business with China, they need to divest of that stuff, because otherwise, when the time comes, if they still have their money mixed up with the Chinese Communist Party, they're just going to lose it all. They're going to have to forfeit all of that, and all of their investment is going to be gone. So this is, and another company that I was thinking about methods with the video games, Activision Blizzard. They got into trouble. Well, maybe there was a kerfuffle about a streamer or a professional gamer who was at it was like some type of Blizzard like game. I don't know what you call them, but I mean, it was like a tournament, and he had like a t-shirt on that said "Free Hong Kong," or he had like it written in his profile, and they completely banned him from being able to participate because they are so beholden to the Chinese Communist Party. So I think that there was more money mixed into the American economy from China than anybody really has any idea over. We know that China has been here buying up realty. We know that they've been getting in business with American companies, but it is so deep and so far and wide. These companies are going to be in a lot of trouble once the hammer really comes down and they're no longer allowed to do business with China. It's going to be bad for them. So get out now. Get out.
Right. No, and I'm all for it, and I've seen some people in the chat, and we agree with you. Get rid of all these companies. To me, let them all burn. I would like to see a life without Disney entirely, because there's too much poison in that well. But it is going to take time, because if we took away literally everything, and I'm not justifying it, I'm saying they need to be investigated, go through all their books, take out the bad actors, have the companies sell off that need to, get it in the right hands of people, or have new startups happen and blow up. Like having that's fine, but it's going to have to take time. If we just stopped the world and took everybody down that's been, with their hands in the pot, essentially, economies across governments and nations would crash immediately. So I don't know. To me, there's such like a tightrope of how they have to handle these things. I respect it. I respect the hell out of it because of how much, you pull a thread in one place. I think Dilly made this analogy. You pull a thread in one place and then on the other side, it unravels. And then, pull another thread and this unravels. So yeah, it's to me, military planning at its finest would have to handle something like that.
Maureen in the chat says all assets of China are frozen as per Executive Order 1221. They are no longer owning anything in the USA. I'm pretty certain that was just a freeze on certain members of the CCP, not all Chinese assets in totality, but maybe that's something we can look into. Real quick, I just need to say thank you to Kyle. He said, have you been tracking the election and riots in Belarus? I have not. I'm not familiar with that. I don't know what's going on with that, but I will definitely look into it.
I saw footage, and it's pretty intense out there.
Really? Okay, well, that's worth checking out. Also, Sandra, she said, thanks for all you do. Thank you so much, Sandra, or Sandy, rather. And then Janice, wow, Janice, thank you very much. She said, thank you for all you do. I love your show. I really appreciate that, Janice. Thank you so much for the support, you guys. Well, it feels to me, and it felt to me all week, like we were kind of building up to something. President Trump, he made that trip to Ohio. My friend J.R. Majewski, who was on the show recently, the guy with the Trump lawn sign on his actual lawn, he painted it on there. He was asked by POTUS to be a member of the motorcade. When they were driving from the airport, I believe they flew in on Marine One. They then they drove to the airport, and down the street, he said that it was just packed. It was lined with people. He said he's never seen so many signs in support of our favorite Anon anywhere. He said it was just all you could see. Everybody there was a member of this movement. And President Trump drove down the street super, super slow, and he waved at absolutely everybody. And JR said it was just such an incredible experience. He's going to be on the show. He's going to be hosting with me in a couple of weeks. So we'll talk about it more in depth there. But he there were a couple of things that he noticed, and I touched on this the other day. There was apparently an extra layer of security around POTUS. Not just your average secret security detail. It was a little beefier. I don't want to say any more than that because I don't want to give it away. I want to keep these guys safe. But it was more, okay? And now I'm sure that POTUS and people in his detail, people in the White House, they're aware of more than we are. They know when he needs additional security. They know when there are credible threats against him. And it's not just from chatter, but it's also the decisions he makes. Now, he also made an announcement while he was at the Whirlpool factory about his decision to change the way that pharmaceuticals are produced, the way that pharmaceuticals are bought. And he said specifically he's cutting out the middleman. He's cutting out the middleman, and he's going to make drug prices as affordable as they possibly can be for us here in America. Because there are prescription drugs that, sometimes are produced here in America, and they're sold to other countries for pennies on the dollar, a couple of 5-10 cents a pill, something like that. But here in America, they'll sell it for hundreds, thousands of dollars. So what President Trump has done is cut out the middlemen. If a drug is being sold in another country for cheaper, he's found the absolute cheapest cost, and we are buying it from that country and then selling it to Americans at that price, so that there is no markup and people can afford prescription medications. And maybe even if you don't have an insurance plan, I pay like $600 a month, maybe even more than that, so that my daughter and I can have insurance. And that's a necessity. That's something that I have to do. Now, maybe the decision that President Trump is making is going to make insurance cheaper because the insurance companies are no longer going to have to be shelling out ridiculous sums of money for these prescription drugs. If they're going to be getting them at pennies on the dollar compared to what they were, it's going to be a wonderful thing for people who have to pay for private health care. And then for people who don't have private health care, or maybe who have, Medicare or Medicaid, or maybe people who don't have anything at all, they can afford to buy prescription drugs now, and they can take care of themselves. And they don't have to decide on whether or not they're going to eat this month, or if they're going to be getting their blood pressure medication, just as a random example. But there's some rumors that are swirling around now based upon what President Trump said. Oh, and that was the kicker. I forgot to say that. While he was talking about his decision, he said that he's made some really rich and powerful enemies. The people that he is cutting out are not happy with him, and they don't want President Trump to do what he's doing. Why? Because he's taking millions, if not billions of dollars out of their pockets, and he's leaving it in the hands of the American people, empowering us in another way. But he said that he's made a lot of enemies, and he suggested that we might not be seeing much of him until the election. Now, granted, he did go to New Jersey after that. He gave 2 press conferences. Method's correct. He gave 2 press conferences in New Jersey.
Yeah, 2 that I saw.
Yeah. And that was, talking about the executive orders that we already touched on. But with when President Trump left the White House the other day on let me see, I want to show you guys this tweet. So on August 6th, when he left the White House, all of the staff in the White House lined up on the lawn and they waved goodbye to him. How often do you guys remember seeing every single employee inside the White House standing on the lawn, waving President Trump, and wishing him well? This is an unusual sight. Now, one other thing that I noticed, and I do think this picture is tuned up a little bit, probably by the photographer, but I did notice that the curtains, the majority of curtains in the windows are green. So that immediately made me think Greencastle. So I just thought that was interesting. But, there are people talking about whether or not something is about to go down. Now, we also had a report just the other day about the Durham report. President Trump was on Lou Dobbs, and he made a comment about the severity of the information inside that report. And, of course, the indictments that are going to ensue as a result of the information that has been uncovered by John Durham. But there was another report from John Solomon just the other day, which indicated that the investigation by Durham is more than likely going to start dropping bombshells before Labor Day, which, of course, is going to be before the election.
Yep, totally agreed. Well, as far as let me just go back just a little bit when you talk about the middlemen that he referred to when it comes to making enemies. And Texas Sweet Thing brought up this point. I'm glad you reminded me about this. They said middlemen are politicians, lobbyists, pay off congressmen and senators. Now, I know that's a pretty bold statement, straightforward, but what we do know is that Big Pharma does lobby like crazy in our government. They lobby for everything. So we know that there's kickbacks. Think about how much they riddle the commercials in between news companies. So we know that there's hands tied there. So all this money being sifted around and stolen from the American people by upping prices on medicines, which I know we're talking very loosely about this, but that right there is like, if you want to just give somebody an example of how evil this can get, then think about people who couldn't afford medication, and then they couldn't pay for like a grandparent's medication. They lost their grandparent over it. Yep. Or, that happened. That happened with somebody I knew from high school. She was on a medication. I don't know what it was. It was a while ago. And the parents couldn't afford it because the prices went up on it. And then she ended up just was going to be out, not have it for a week or so. And long story short, they found her, passed away in the bedroom. Oh, no. And, stuff. Yeah, it was somebody I was kind of close to her and stuff. But I mean, it's still terrible to hear. But the point is that they have no problem doing this. To me, it reminds me of like the pharmakia stuff. This is witchcraft, essentially. Yeah. It's stuff that, that's another rabbit hole for another day. But if they're willing to just put a price on people's, lives and say, all right, we're going to have you work hard. We're also going to take your tax money, but what money we do allow you to have off of working, we're going to set a price on your life or your relative's life, or, your friend at church or friend of the family in general, and set that price when it could be way cheaper. And they hand it off to people way cheaper in other countries. That's disgusting and evil. And then now imagine how much the middlemen type thing, where's that money going? To the people that control the laws, right? That's definitely got to be it, or who pulls their strings. So yeah, I mean, now to segue into what you're talking about with Durham, it is interesting timing. You can kind of feel this. I'm not trying to say it's happening feeling, but you can kind of feel like the chaos in the air a little bit of everything going on. I mean, we've got Durham's being talked about a lot more. We know anytime Barr comes out, from the shadows and starts talking publicly, things start happening some.
Right.
We got Trump's statement that he made on not being seen for a while. And you see the constant attacks on how Durham's going to be used. Think about how the left's saying this. The left is saying Durham is going to be the October surprise. What Barr and Durham are going to do, right? They're not saying it's a nothing burger anymore. We're not getting that kind of conversation. If anything, we get that from shills and then concerned fairies actually on the right. But they're talking about it happening. So we're going to be at that point to where even if they're accepting actions coming, then to me, these next few months are probably going to be the biggest that we've had since this all started.
Absolutely.
Not just because of the sweet victory of seeing, indictments happen and all those things. And everybody that's been holding their breath can let out that sigh of relief that's been there for 3 years waiting for it. We're going to have that moment, but how chaotic is it going to be in retaliation when our president has these enemies that he's now referring to publicly?
Well, there's also methods. We didn't even discuss this beforehand, but I'm sure that there's a group called Adbusters who back in the day, they used to do some interesting stuff, but now they are organizing what they're literally calling a siege on the White House. They're planning a 30-day protest where they're organizing people to come and essentially protest all around the White House. And I think they even used the term revolution in the press release that they put out. I don't have it pulled up, but it has a certain insinuation to it. Okay. Like I feel like there is so much that is coinciding like into this moment. And I agree with you. I think it's going to get a lot worse before the election. I think things are just going to be crazy. But I also hope that means that President Trump is going to keep hitting back with things that are really good for the American people. And, John Durham putting out this information with indictments being released, with getting arrests, I honestly believe that this must happen before the election. I think that everybody who was talking about him punting it, I think that was kind of them trying to, they were doing a head fake. They want us to believe that it's not going to come out. They want us to believe that there isn't going to be any resolution, that it's just business as usual. Nobody's going to get in trouble. The report, it's going to say whatever, people did stuff and they're not going to get punished. But I don't think that that's the case. I really honestly believe that this is finally going to be the resolution that we need. Because it's not just us who've been waiting on it all this time. It's the people on the left who truly believe that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, were on the phone coordinating election fraud all across the United States and thinking that, mail-in ballots are perfectly safe and why shouldn't everybody just be able to use them? This is going down. This is truly what I believe. I really believe this is going down, and I'm so looking forward to this. Anybody who knows John Durham, anybody who personally was associated with him, they know that he means business. He's not going to fake this stuff. He's not going to fail to come to, some kind of a decision or, miss any evidence. This guy is thorough, okay? He is exacting, and he's going to put his stamp of approval on it, and these people are going to go to jail.
Yeah, I also want people to, really take into consideration how far back Durham, Barr, Bash, who they've announced on the unmasking. We've got other people too. I can't remember the names off the top of my head that are investigating other things and going back. I'm hearing some of it's going back to 2014. At least like the unmasking stuff, they're going way back. So imagine like uncovering and turning those rocks over and seeing that, and then it opens up an entirely new investigation that has nothing to do anymore with Spygate, except that they did the spying and try to take down Flynn and all that to stop these things from coming to light of day and getting consequences. So as far as what Durham does before the election, I believe that we're going to have something that's definitely going to need to happen as far as morale, justice, getting started, getting the public used to it. If Sally Yates is willing to throw James Comey under the bus and say he went rogue, even if she tried to retract it later, she would have that smirk on her face that she'd have no problem blaming him.
Yep.
Like, to me, if Comey, I will be surprised, not disappointed, but I'd be fully surprised if Comey is not indicted before, because he is who they planned as the whipping boy, they're going to throw under the bus. And then you could tie in all the other ones. You could put him, Brennan, Strzok, Page, put them in that same category. And then imagine that moment. It would be the talking point that CNN, all of them would have to cover. So I do believe that, but what I'm getting at is that we need to expect certain things to drop, shoes to drop over time. As it gets started with FISA, and everything that went on with that, but even further, we're going to have things go on for a long time as far as like public hearings, indictments, frog marches out of their apartments or homes. We're going to have those things over time, but I think it's going to start probably with the FBI. And because Go ahead.
Don't forget about Bash's investigation. I mean, John Durham is not the only game in town. And I want to say what up to BCP. BCP is in the audience. Good to see you here, brother. He said there are a lot of other rabbit holes that are being uncovered by Durham. That's, this is not like a single focused investigation. There are many different avenues, and there are multiple other prosecutors who are involved in looking at other additional avenues and different crimes. This is really very, very, very far-reaching, and this ties into the next story that I wanted to get into, because we just got some additional smoking gun evidence released from the Senate Intelligence Committee, if I'm not mistaken. And this is from February 14th of 2018. And it was a briefing on former employee of Christopher Steele. So this is while Christopher Wray was the head of the FBI, and it's essentially a roadmap for how they were planning on lying to the Senate Intel Committee. And Lindsey Graham is extremely upset about this right now, because it's not just Comey's FBI. We now have proof that Christopher Wray's FBI was playing both sides of the fence, and more often than not, they were not being honest with Congress.
Right, and I mean, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for Wray. I mean, I'll stick with what I've said before. Like, let's see how this plays out. Mm-hmm. I came out at the end of the whole Sessions debacle, and I get why he did what he did, and I have no qualms with him personally, even if the president likes to call him out. As far as Wray goes, I would not be surprised at all if he is like a cog in the wheel, like causing problems in this situation. But then again, we said this a while ago. If Wray was told when he took the job, you get your ass in there, you sit down, you're going to fix the FBI on the rank and file level, make sure everything's clean, and then like these documents that are going to be requested by the Senate and the House, you're going to stonewall, and they're going to go to Durham, and they're going to go to Barr and their investigations first, because that's came out already when in the Flynn investigation or in the Flynn hearing stuff that's been going on. They were like, we've been wanting these documents, why they've been hiding. And the response that came back that I will buy to a point, once again, I'm skeptical, is that they were tied up in the Durham investigation. So that means Durham's like, all right, I already got what I need out of this. Now hand it over. Flynn's not in prison. So I think, to me, I that's fine. If people want to hate on Wray, it doesn't bother me, because I get it. At times I want to hate him too. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But as far as this story here, this doesn't help it.
No.
You know, this was going on during Ray, and Ray's been put under oath, and he could have said things. But once again, if he was told taking the job, the president looked him in the eye and said, everything that you're about to work on is under wraps. This is the biggest, like you've said before on other shows, and now many people have said it. We have this one shot, really, to fix these things. So, but then again, if Ray was put in there expected to be black hat, that you can watch and pay attention to, and you already know from the jump that you need to watch his actions, and you can learn a lot from people that you already know that are going to make bad decisions. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing to me.
Definitely. If they knew what kind of a character Christopher Wray had, that he would continue on the legacy of what James Comey had put in there, trying to protect the FBI, trying to continue to hide things from Congress. You better believe they've been watching him this entire time. They know everything, okay? These people are not stupid. I trust the instincts of the president, and for whatever reason, he put Christopher Wray in there. And if it was to get caught, if it was to find further malfeasance, then I totally am down with it. I need to say thank you.
Before you move on from this, Flynn hearing is Tuesday. I don't know if it's public, but it's the hearing of basically of Judge Sullivan and about if he needs to be taken off the case or something like that because of how his handling of it and justification. So it'll be his representation. So if anybody in the chat knows, if we can at least listen in on the hearing, or if somebody's going to do it, by all means, reach out to us and let us know.
And then thank you to J Bell as well for the donation on Cash App. I appreciate that, J Bell. All right, so like I said, Lindsey Graham he's fired up. He's pretty upset about this. Because this new document has come out, and it shows that they lied to the Senate Intelligence Committee regarding the Steele dossier, regarding the FISA warrants, regarding the surveillance of Carter Page. He said the senator said that the FBI told the committee there was no reason to doubt the dossier and the primary subsource that ex-British spy Christopher Steele used to put together the dossier, despite the fact that the source had previously said the dossier mischaracterizes the information he gave Steele. It was the Justice Department's Inspector General Michael Horowitz, during his investigation of the warrant application, who found information in 2018 where the FBI was called on the Senate Intel Committee because people were getting suspicious about the subsource at the Senate Intel Committee level, and the FBI was sent over to brief them. Now, they did to the Senate Intel Committee what they did to the FISA court. They misled the HE double hockey sticks out of them. They said there's no evidence from the subsource to suggest that Steele fabricated anything in the dossier. And actually, the subsource said it was all bar talk, hearsay, speculation, and conjecture. The whole sexual activity of the president was made in jest, so they completely misrepresented to the Senate Intel Committee in 2018 what the subsource had told the FBI in 2017. Somebody needs to go to jail for this. This is a second lie. This is a second crime. They lied to the FISA court. They got rebuked. The FBI did in 2019 by the FISA court, putting in doubt all FISA applications. A year before, they're lying to the Senate Intel Committee. It's just amazing, the compounding of the lies. I'm going to find out who did that briefing, and whoever it is, they're in trouble. So think what you will about Lindsey Graham, but he's putting this on the record, and I think that we got to wait and see what's going to happen, and before we need to reserve judgment, basically. But hopefully, Lindsey Graham is going to follow through on this.
Right. I'm very interested, and I probably know the answer in the chat. Give me a 1 if you trust Lindsey Graham. Give me a 2 if you just don't trust him at all. 1 if you trust Lindsey Graham, 2 if you don't. I have less trust in him than I do in Ray as far as the actions at this point and the ties of everything that's gone on before. But once again, he could have been told as soon as Trump got elected, all right, Graham, here's your role. We're going to put this leash on you here, sit in the corner. A lot of twos. And we're going to have you play your role, and then you're going to step down from your job. You're going to retire early, and then we're going to let you be. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I definitely don't know. I do see a few ones out there, and if I had asked everybody about the same question during the Kavanaugh hearing, it would be probably safe bet it would be flipped right now. Yeah. Because I remember we called him the honorary Anon. For how he handled the Kavanaugh situation. Yeah. But you know how memory holes happen and we fall into them, and kind of, it is what it is. It's the what have you done for me lately complex. So yeah, it is what it is, but I would not be surprised at all if Graham, is just the ghost of No Name McCain.
I mean, there's something there. I need to say thank you to Sheila. She said, haven't been able to support you lately. I've been sending all my money to the president's re-election campaign, but thank you, Red Pill, for all you do. Appreciate that, Sheila. Karen said, has anyone mentioned Pelosi's announcement to remove Trump and make herself president under continuity of government martial law? Pelosi claims President Trump will be leaving the White House whether he knows it yet or not. She mentioned fumigated. Well, that actually is something that I had here. Pelosi does not become president if the election is delayed. If you read the 12th Amendment, if no president is elected by January 20th, then the House picks the president and each state gets one vote. And there's 50 votes total. And if you count the number of red states versus blue states, there are more red states. So I would imagine they would choose President Trump again, and then we would have 50 votes. There are more red states, one vote, one state. President Trump would still remain president. That's my opinion on it. Also, Laura, she says, any thoughts on the Belarus protests over the election? I haven't heard anything about that yet. Celia says, you're the best. Marilyn says, RP78, thank you for all you do. God bless. Judy Massett, thank you very much, Judy. Wendy, thank you. Vicky, thank you as well. Let's see, Knee Plus Ultra Technology Solutions. Thank you for that. Thank you, all of you, for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. Now, real quick, before we get into the next segment, did you have something you want to say?
Well, I mean, yeah, as far as the Nancy thing, I mean, Nancy says a lot of things.
She does.
So, so I mean, I take anything she says with the same grain of salt as I'd take the drunk at a bar giving me life advice. Yeah. It is what it is on her. So, no, if she's making these, if anything, why is she saying this stuff is probably what I look at more so than the words.
I think that Pelosi she's all talk. Okay, she wants to get a soundbite. She wants to have whatever she's saying covered on all of the mainstream media, which we know is anti-President Trump. So if Pelosi goes out there and drunkenly slurs her way through a tirade about how she's going to be president, it's going to get on the news. And then you're going to have a bunch of people on the left who see that and they're like, oh, Pelosi's taking over, President Pelosi. Although President Pelosi would be just as bad, if not worse, than President Joe Biden. So the other big deal that happened this morning, we had a guest on Sunday Morning Futures, Marita Bartiromo's program. The man is named Stephen Schrage, and he just happens to be the guy who introduced Stefan Halper, the deep state spy, to Carter Page, and he gave an interview, an exclusive interview. Now, he worked for Stefan Halper for years, apparently, and he introduced Page and Halper back in 2016 while Halper was looking to continue spying on the Trump campaign, and he said Halper was not that engaged up to the point that he crossed paths with Page and Christopher Steele's former MI6 boss, Richard Dearlove. So he made the introduction, but he was surprised to know that Halper was making over $500,000 writing reports for the government. I bet you he wasn't paying him that well. So he said, the real smoking gun is this. All these tentacles lead back to the small group, including Stefan Halper and Spygate, Christopher Steele at the center of Russiagate, Stefan Halper's FBI handler. None of the Senate has subpoenaed or called these people to talk in 4 years. I think that's the real smoking gun. How are these people being protected? And he also made a point to say that there was a lot of Republicans that were involved in what went down too. And we've talked about that. This is not a partisan issue. People on the left and on the right in power really, really dislike President Trump. Think about all of those never-Trumpers, all of those people who, maybe now they think differently about President Trump. But you go back a couple of years, and I think Mark Meadows was even, not that fond of President Trump at the start, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. I mean, a lot of them were obviously second-guessing him entirely. But the guy, what did you say his name was?
Stephen Schrage.
Yeah, he also said that he himself was questioned by Durham recently. So as far as this whole, hasn't been any Senate hearings and stuff like that. Him saying that is just kind of him grandstanding, because I didn't necessarily buy this guy. I didn't know anything about him, but it seemed to me like he was like, well, I didn't know anything at all. This was confusing to me, and then had no problem giving out a recording of his boss. So it is what it is on that. But the big takeaway of what Halper was saying on the recording
Yeah, tell us about that. Yeah.
Yeah, basically they were discussing, Flynn. And this was 2 days before, if you guys remember, when the leak made it to the Washington Post about Flynn being a target of the Logan Act. Like, they were looking into him for the Logan Act.
Mm-hmm.
This was 2 days before this recording happened. And he was talking about how Flynn was probably not going to be around much longer. And he also said that Flynn was effed, and I am censoring the word. he made those comments about it, and he obviously didn't have, from the tone of his voice, a very good light of Flynn at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 days later, it ends up in WAPO, this story about Flynn. But the guy Schrage had also said that what's his name? Stefan Halper was friends with Ignatius. What was his name?
David Ignatius, yeah.
Of WAPO.
Yep.
And one of so there's a connection there of WAPO and this whole situation. So it's definitely interesting that it comes out now, and they allowed it to come out because like I said, they already talked to Durham earlier about that. Now I know we're at the top of the hour, Red Pill. I just want to make sure everybody knows we got 4,200 people here hanging out with us. We really do appreciate you guys being here a little bit earlier today. We don't want to stop anybody from watching Bill Barr. I definitely want to watch it selfishly, so that's what I'll be doing after this show. 1.5 thousand likes. If you guys don't mind turning that thumb blue, that would be fantastic. And thank you guys for hitting us up on PayPal, Cash App, all that good stuff.
For sure. And Gary just sent a donation on PayPal. Appreciate you, Gary. And I just want to make sure I didn't miss anyone. Yeah, that's it on there. And then we just got another one on Cash App. We'll get that to pull up in just a moment. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and bring in our next guest. This is Zach McElroy. He is another Facebook whistleblower. And Zach is going to go through and tell us about the very interesting circumstances. Oh, we got your phone unlocked, Zach.
There we go. I think I need to rotate my video.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Much better.
Perfect. Zach, welcome to the show, man. I'm really happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. So I was looking at your Twitter profile, and I saw that you were a musician, and now I see that you're calling in from your studio. You got the reel-to-reel in the background? That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I do. It's the bedroom studio.
It's perfect. Well, so please, for anybody who may not be familiar with you, give us an introduction. Who is Zach McElroy?
Sure, I'm Zach McElroy. I was most famous recently for being the Facebook insider for Project Veritas. I started working for a company that did the content moderation for Facebook a little over a year ago, and one thing leads to another, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, over the course of the next hour. And here I am.
So how did you get in touch with Project Veritas? Did you reach out to them? I mean, was it very long after you began your employment for this contractor?
Yes, I started working for them January last year. And I had actually been aware of Project Veritas for like 5 or 6 years up until that point. But it never clicked with me to actually reach out to them and tell them, hey, I've got this information. Being a conservative coming into this job, it's like right from the get-go, something's up. So it actually took a while for me to kind of put two and two together that I could actually reach out to them, that they'd be interested, because I guess I thought maybe it wasn't a big enough story or something. But anyway, about maybe 7 months later into my job, I had a chance meeting with the Pinterest insider, Eric Cochran. He was giving a speech about tech censorship at an event, and I saw that, and I kind of had an epiphany at that moment. I thought, what the heck, I'll exchange business cards with them, and I talked to them about what I had, the unique position I was in, and they were very interested, and within a couple of weeks had everything rolling.
Was there any one thing that happened during the course of your employment that really gave you pause, that maybe flipped the switch and said, oh, wow, there really are censoring conservative voices? Or was it more of a culture there?
I think it's both of those things. I think there's a two-sided issue with this, with tech censorship, and specifically in the case of Facebook. There's the policy side of things, which was apparent to me the first day of work. The training period lasted about a month and covered all of their internal policy, the ones that the moderator used, not just the public policy. and all of the exceptions that they make to their policy, which I'm sure we'll talk about as well. But then there's also this aspect of the moderators themselves and the work culture. And, these are the people who are essentially responsible for a large portion of the public discourse on the internet. And they're all, essentially activists. They're all very left-leaning. They only hire these guys in blue cities and states for the most part. And a lot of them we saw in the investigation that they had no problem abusing their power in the system and taking down and deleting things and content that, even though they were not supposed to, they just had a sort of vendetta against politically.
Was there any process of accountability for people using that power in a way that went above and beyond what they should be doing with it?
On the face of it, ostensibly there is, in the sense that there are audits that get done on the work that you perform. That kind of is basically what their performance review scores are based on. Random sampling of the posts that they review and leave up or delete get audited and seen by a second party at the in the company. But for the most part, I've heard stories of people doing this kind of rogue activity with more or less impunity. And in fact, we actually had a supervisor or a higher up who was essentially in charge of the rest of the people at the office, the moderators, say that he wasn't going to hold you accountable if you were to, take down any of Donald Trump's posts.
Wow.
Hey, just real quick. Yeah, no, it's definitely great information. Great to meet you, Zach. I've seen it in the chat, Ripple. Zach's audio is either kind of low or it's kind of got like a high pitch to it as far as like the tone of it. Is there any way we could fix that for the audience at all?
Zach, is there any way to maybe bring your microphone closer?
I can bring my camera closer. Let's see how that looks.
Okay, yeah. Honestly, guys, if the mic is on the camera, that's really the only thing we can do. Methods and Zach are on the same audio channel, so I don't want to turn it up too much more. Actually, tell you what, Methods, what I'll do is I will turn it up, and then if you want to go ahead and interject, just let me know, and I'll turn it back down a little bit, because you're a touch louder than Zach is.
Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2.
Okay, as long as you, yeah. Okay, perfect. You guys are both hitting the red now. Okay, all right. So let's. So we've already talked a little bit about the culture there. So you mentioned that people are getting hired in blue areas. I mean, where it's more likely that they're going to be liberals. I mean, how did you slip through? I mean, were they interested in your political your views before they gave you the position?
Yeah, I guess you could say it was pure chance. I actually happened to be looking for a better job. I had just moved to the area, and the first job that I got paid minimum wage, and it was not full time or anything. So I was in the market for a new job, and had done something similar before, although it was a work at home position and contract work. And I was looking for positions that were similar to that, and I saw this company Cognizant listed on a list of companies that did similar work. And so I said, well, let me check out their website. I saw that they had an office 15 minutes from me. So I shot them I shot them an application, and they got back to me enthusiastically, and I did an interview. And it was at the interview that I found out that the work would be done for Facebook. The position was a generic job title with kind of a generic vague description. Although I kind of had an inkling of what it was about because it was social media work, quote unquote. You can figure it's one of the big ones. And, because of the whole NDA business, they didn't tell me that was for Facebook until I did the interview. So once I found that out, of course, I thought to myself, well, I'm in the belly of the beast now. And so that's essentially the explanation. It's I just really kind of slipped through the cracks, huh? And as far as to answer your question about whether they screened me politically, so to speak, actually did not really get any political or politically oriented questions in my interview. My best guess as to that would be probably because 90%, well, more than 90%, I think I was one of only I could count on one hand the number of conservatives or, not left-leaning folks at the office that existed there. So I feel like they probably didn't even feel the need to ask questions like that.
Now, were you openly conservative there in the office, or were you kind of trying to fly under the radar so nobody would know?
As with most things, I play things smart. I keep my politics close to my chest.
Okay. All right. That's good. So how long were you there before you decided that you were going to go ahead and start doing this undercover work for Project Veritas?
Yeah, so like I said, it was about maybe, I guess, 7 months. Well, I started working in January, and then I think I reached out, I think it was like around September, October, something like that. So started reaching out around then. The wheels were moving very quickly, and that resulted in about 4 months of actual undercover work. The only reason it ended, actually, is because Cognizant, the company that had the contract with Facebook, actually decided to shut down both their Tampa and Phoenix facilities and lay off all their employees. If not for that, I would probably still be on the inside and getting footage right now.
Any idea why they shut down those particular facilities? I mean, was it because this report was coming out?
Well, fortunately, they were none the wiser. Nobody had a clue what was going on. But no, actually, the reason that they shut them down is because they had experienced a lot of bad press over the course of the last year leading up to the closure. Some folks might already be familiar with this situation. The Verge had published some articles, kind of a similar insider expose type of situation of employees that had developed PTSD from seeing the terrible live leak things that you see at this kind of job. And essentially, these employees complained that they were not being taken care of, and I think there were complaints about, complaints about wages, and there was just kind of like one article after the other, and it all focused in on this one company, Cognizant. Even though there are multiple companies that do this work, they kind of just took the brunt of it. So I guess they cut their losses and decided to just lay everybody off instead of having to deal with it.
I had heard a story about people who were content moderators for Facebook who were basically getting red pilled as a result of looking at these posts. Did you have anybody in your office that happened to?
I saw that article as well. Yeah, I don't know if I could say that for anybody that I knew personally, but I don't doubt that that's the case at all. I mean, truth is the most powerful thing. Information is the most powerful thing. If you're sat down in front of a chair for 8 hours a day, and some of this stuff, you see it. I don't know. It's you really have to be like really in denial to kind of block that out and let it go over your head.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of these specific instances. I mean, were you able to get any, of their standards and procedures, things that overtly showed the fact that they were trying to censor conservative voices or anything having to do with President Trump?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There were plenty of policy exceptions that they made that suggested things like this. They couldn't do anything as bold as putting this in the actual in their actual policy itself, because that's kind of mostly public, and if people saw in the public policy we're censoring conservatives and you can't do a thing about it, nobody's going to be happy about that. But the way they skirt it is they skirt their own rules by making policy exceptions for often arbitrary reasons to come up with an example of something that affects President Trump directly. I recall when the Soleimani attack happened, when Soleimani was killed, and there was an Iranian politician. Well, I think a number of people that did this, but essentially there was an Iranian politician that put out a bounty for Donald Trump's head. I think it was like $30 million or something like that. And in response to that, there was an image on Instagram that started trending, and it was an image. It was a screenshot of a map of Florida, and it had circled a location on Florida and an arrow pointing to it. It said, "Dear Iran, he's on the golf course." And this is essentially something that anybody with a brain could say is supporting the assassination of the president of the United States, which generally I think would be something that they would take down. I think generally that would be something that would be deleted by their policy standards. But they had made a post and they gave a memo to all their moderators saying that this was too vague and not explicit enough threat or support for a threat to take down. So they left that up, and there was famously, if you've seen the video, there's an example of image of Donald Trump is I guess a drawing, a painting, an illustration, him having his throat slit, rather graphic image, drawn art on the front of some museum in Portland, I guess. And they had sent a memo to the employees to leave this imagery up, which, okay, it's art. It's tasteless perhaps, but you can maybe make an argument for that. However, after one of the debates, I forget which one, Democratic debates, there was a meme that started circulating of Beto O'Rourke being shot by Elmer Fudd. It was literally like it was a meme. It was Elmer Fudd shooting Beto O'Rourke because he said, "I'm here for your guns." And so Elmer Fudd shoots him. It's a cartoon. The tone is obviously very different. It's much more lighthearted. But regardless, it's drawn art for the most part. Exact same situation, except they had actually given a memo to us moderators to delete that for, I guess, imagery depicting violence or threats or something along those lines.
Did you see over the course of your employment there a ramping up in censoring of conservative issues? Like, were there things that kind of came on their radar and they decided, well, we can't allow people to continue to talk about this stuff?
It's something that I think I would expect to see more since I left. As we get closer to the election, I think they're going to really start to crack down and focus more on stuff like this. And, when I left, coronavirus was barely in the news. So I can't imagine what's being said and given to their, moderators about Corona, about the debates, about all this other stuff. I will say that they did often they did give us memos in the lead up to things that would otherwise be innocuous, like the State of the Union address, or when Trump would make a speech about, there was a speech he made a while ago about immigration. He was making a speech. They would give us memos telling us to watch out for hate speech. In what? The State of the Union speech? What hate speech is going to be contained there? So they would kind of they're very nuanced things, but they would even straight up say that, I remember one memo said that Donald Trump had, quote, dog whistled white nationalists or something to the effect.
It's insane. What about your bosses there? Would your bosses walk around and badmouth the president or badmouth the people that might support him?
If you talked about it with them, yeah, certainly. I think if you could talk to anybody there, anybody, period, even if they're a higher up, even if there's someone in a position of greater responsibility, if you were to talk to them about politics and not, bring up something work related, like I'm going to delete, such and such, out of a personal vendetta, where they have to, for the sake of the job, they technically have to tell you, I can't allow that. If you were to talk about them, or if you were to talk about politics with them, they absolutely would have had no hesitation expressing disdain for the president.
Are you worried at all about them coming after you for breaking your NDA? I mean, has there been any action towards you or any threats?
Well, very fortunately, and I don't want to jinx it, there has not been any. I've not been getting any trouble so far. But I would like to think that the optics of a large corporation like Facebook going after just one guy, so for having the audacity to expose the truth and speak nothing but the truth, that would look pretty bad. So I will hope that it continues to be no trouble.
Did you happen? Go ahead, Matt.
I wanted to ask a question, Zach, about the memos that you were being handed on what to not get rid of, because that, to me, that's an action. They're writing something down and saying, okay, this was in their head, we need to do something. My question is, could this literally just be one person who writes this memo that makes this decision? Or is there going to be some kind of hierarchy that makes that choice and then the memos start coming down? Because I'm wondering, how many people does it take to censor an entire platform with millions of people?
How many policymakers does it take to screw in a light bulb? That's a very good question. I think that, the policy team is a team, and it's at Facebook HQ, so they've got their campus. I don't know how many people are on that team. So I think it's certainly more than one person, but I know that there are people at Facebook HQ that communicate directly with the people at, so I guess there's policy at Facebook and there's also policy at these contracting companies, because we had folks at our office that worked in a quote unquote policy department. which I believe really just kind of meant that they were communicating with the people at Facebook. So I would think that there's a team that kind of delegates, or more specifically, they come up with, a team comes up with policy, and the policy changes, and like you said, the memos and the exceptions, and then they kind of like feed that information out to all the employees.
It's just, that's so much power in a group, and I don't know how many people it would be, but I imagine it would take a whole lot to have a discussion about, do we need to do this because of the State of the Union, or we need to do this because of a sticker because it's art or not. And they're active. They're having the discussion if they're willing to allow one happen, but not in the other case when it comes to Democrats and Republicans, Trump or not Trump. So that's very dangerous, because if it is a select few, and we're not talking about hundreds of people that are deciding this and voting on it together, and if it's not going all the way up to where, let's just say like a Zuckerberg, that to me it's dangerous to have that many, that few people control that many voices. And I would imagine places like Twitter, because that's where I work at as far as like putting out information. Because no offense, I mean, you're not there anymore. I know you don't care. Facebook is terrible. I've hated it for years. I want nothing to do with it. They could dismantle it and rename it something else. I want MySpace to come back at this point. But I don't like that it wouldn't be a whole lot of people that would control that many voices at once when we are using social media to at least talk to each other.
Oh, no, absolutely. Like I've said, that's a large portion of the public discourse, because if you think about it, really most communication is done these days online. And of the communication that's done online, a massive portion of it is handled by Facebook, because not only is it Facebook, of course, it's also Instagram, WhatsApp, et cetera. And so you've got a company that's involved in a big chunk of, like I said, the public discourse. And it's in the hands of a few people, like you said. And, not only is it dangerous enough for it to be in the hands of a few people, but frankly, they're in the hands of a lot of radical people. Those few people are mostly radicals and mostly of one political ideology. And then it gets even crazier when you consider that Facebook is supposed to be the neutral one. Facebook is supposed to be the less extreme, and Twitter and Jack Dorsey is supposed to be the real activists. So
I get replies on, real quick, Rippo. I get replies on Twitter, people just saying, like, with a GIF that says Jesus loves you, and I have to click through on it being harmful content for me to be able to even read it. So we do have that problem everywhere, and I don't believe Facebook's pretty much any different.
Nope.
Did you notice people working there in the content moderation team attacking any particular religious persuasion? I mean, be it Christianity, Judaism, Islam?
That's a good question. I had heard about that, but I hadn't seen any of that myself. At the end of the day, we actually were kind of cordoned off into teams. So although I only worked with about a dozen other people, or maybe upwards of 20 people at a time, I wouldn't be surprised out of hundreds and thousands of other people that did that job, that would be the case.
Okay. Real quick, I just need to say thank you to Marilyn. She said, thank you for all you do and God bless. Christy, she says, buy yourself another microphone. It's in the mail. Thank you very much, Christy. Really appreciate that donation. Jill, she said, thanks for all you do. Robert and Meg, thank you both. And then Wayne says, I love what you do, brother. I don't always get to watch you live, but I do get to watch on the replay the next day. Plug in my headphones at work the next day and listen. Please keep fighting the good fight for all of us hardworking Americans. God bless. God bless you too, brother. Appreciate you. So did you happen to catch Zuckerberg's testimony before Congress the other day? I mean, he had come a couple months ago and he claimed that there was absolutely no censorship and they had measures in place to ensure that things like what you're discussing never took place. And clearly after we had you and then Zach, the other Zach also come out and, Ryan, come out and bring this information, it's pretty clear that Zuckerberg is covering up for something larger at his company.
Oh yeah, I did see that. I saw that live. It was nothing short of surreal to witness your name, mentioned, and all that. But yeah, it was definitely the BS detector was going off in every sentence he was saying. I think I had some notes really quick of some of the best things that he mentioned. It was.
I would love to hear that.
Oh, he says he likes to say that Facebook has distinguished themselves as a company that defends free expression the most, but it's like more like stifles the most. Really, if you consider all the things that came out in the report, which people like to discredit Project Veritas and say, oh, they selectively edit and this and that, but you can see people's lips moving. It's kind of hard to dispute this stuff. He says what did he say? If the behavior that they cited is true, then that would be unacceptable in our operation. Well, I've shown it to be true, and I think Mark Zuckerberg knows it's true as well. And it's absurd. It was absurd to see him, say all this stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of par for the course with him. He's done this many times before. He's come, sworn under oath that there's no bias at Facebook, this and that. And things are a little different this time because we've kind of got proof. We've always known this to be the case instinctually, but now we've got cold hard proof of this, not just in their policy, but also in their moderating team.
Exactly. And now there's also a criminal referral, which there has never been before. So it should be very interesting to see how that plays out. I'm certainly looking forward to it. So do you still have any contacts working there at the content moderation team? Anybody that that might have moved to a different office?
Being that Cognizant was the one handling it, or at least, being that Cognizant shut down both of their facilities.
Oh, those are the only two facilities?
The only two Cognizant facilities. There's another company, I think, called Accenture, and a couple of other companies, I'm sure, that are doing this work in North America. But I have not maintained any relationships with any of my coworkers to say, but I'm pretty sure none of them are. It's kind of funny. I think the only personal messages that I got from former coworkers, I actually didn't get any hate mail, which I was really shocked about. I think I only got 2 messages, and both of them were basically positive. One of them was kind of neutral. It was someone who hated working there and was just happy that they kind of caught heat. But another person was actually a conservative, and I was really surprised about that. It was someone who felt like they couldn't, be themselves at the office, and I was really surprised by that. It was actually someone I knew, so that was nice to see. Interesting.
Oh shoot! Hold on, I just lost my train of thought. Yes. Approximately how many hours of footage were you able to capture in that 4-month time span? Because I imagine there's got to be so many other things that were caught on camera that haven't necessarily been revealed yet.
That's a great question. I actually don't know. I've got all of this footage, and I don't know how large it is in gigabytes. I don't know how long it is in hours. I don't know. Well, yeah, there was a lot that didn't quite make it into the video. I guess maybe it wasn't quite made for video, but it was stuff like the Iran bounty that I mentioned earlier, and other kinds of memos and policy exceptions. But for the most part, it was just kind of like boring footage of me at my desk.
Well, Zach, walk us through day one of you being James Bond and recording things. Like, what's going through your head? You get up that morning, you're going to do it. You're going to start recording, and there's no real turning back at this. What's going through your head? What's that first day look like?
Yeah, I had been given the gear, and I practiced around with it to make sure that I, knew how to use it, got the right angles, and all that. And it was kind of just like another day, another normal day at work. I had my camera on me, and I just walked in, sat down, and I think that first day I was getting screen grabs, so I had the camera pointed at the monitor, and I was getting some of the policy exceptions and some other such things. But as far as what the experience was like for me, it was actually pretty normal. You would think that I might be nervous having a camera on me and going undercover like that, but the cameras were so discreet. They were so discreet that I had no fear.
That's good. I mean, I don't know. In my head, I might have been like humming some like background music in my head, thinking I'm some superhero doing something good for that. But no, I mean, that's definitely respectful. I don't know how many people could do that and not freak out and run out the door type thing, because you have the biggest secret in the room immediately walking in. You have a camera that can pick up anything that can end up in Congress and has. So I'll speak for the audience. I'll speak for Red Pill here. We definitely look up to what you did. We definitely respect you for it. We need more people like you to step out and do this, and that's definitely somebody that we're going to remember for a very long time. So thank you, Zach, for that.
Well, thank you kindly, and I agree. I think we need to see a lot more people do things like what I did. I think that's, it's easy for these big tech executives to testify under oath saying that there's no bias, they're not doing this, but they're not going to be held accountable unless we prove that they are. And how do we prove that they are? Well, it's all insular. All of this stuff is on the inside. You've got to be.
Are you still there?
I did with this stuff. Oh, yes, I am.
Yeah, you locked up for a second. I didn't know if it was my internet or your internet. Okay, we're still here.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's all insular. You have to be on the inside, and if you are, then you have to bring this information to light. That's the only way that this stuff comes out. I don't really think anybody ever hacks their servers and gets these documents leaked. So yeah, like you said, it's got to be more people in positions like the one that I was in. And I think if we've got a tidal wave of insiders, so to speak, they can't silence us all, and the truth will speak for itself. And I think that's really what we need. And we're running out of time too. The election's really creeping up on us.
It certainly is. Oh, what's on the slate for you next? I mean, are you just going to be focusing on continuing to talk about this? You're going to just do appearances, maybe write a book?
Yeah, I've been in the process of, for the time that's been since the story's been out, I've been talking to a lot of people. I'm here right now. And it's going to get to a point, and I think it's getting to that point now, where I need to focus on, moving forward with my life. I'm still going to be obviously an advocate for this stuff, and I always will be, because this is my biggest, it's my biggest issue. I feel very fortunate that one of my biggest, political passions, being tech censorship, happened to be the thing that I was able to expose. So, that's always going to be a thing that I'm doing, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, not to beat around the bush, I need to get a job. So it's because they laid us all off at the end of February, and then coronavirus hit, and it became very difficult to get anything. And I was kind of also really just working hard on getting the story out, because it took a while. There were many delays. It was going to come out a long time ago, but worked hard on getting the story out. And now that the story's out, and now that the dust is settled, I'm like, all right, well, I got to get a job. So I'm looking around and, talking to people. If you're watching, anybody who's interested in hiring someone with my background, so to speak, I would be grateful.
What's your skill set? I mean, obviously you've worked in content moderation, but I mean, do you have a specialty outside of that? I mean, I'd love to hear about your music. Somebody wanted to know about your white guitar as well.
Oh, that's just a cheap Ibanez. Yeah, I kind of got that a few years ago. Better is my bass, which I'm happy to have. It's an '83 PV Patriot. Nothing, special, but I like having the vintage gear. Well, as far as my skills, music. Producer, engineer, writer, that whole shebang. And I do have some experience in video production as well. Certainly willing to learn anything, because I know all the programs are different. But audio, video, Photoshop, a lot of the media, so to speak. And aside from that, I went to school for computer science, but I'm no expert programmer. I would say that, in the light of this, I was always a very good people person. I basically managed a store once. So managerial, logistics, arts, it's kind of a, if there's anything that, if anybody's willing to talk to me more about it, I guess we can go from there.
Do you want to tell people where you're based? So in case we have anybody watching the show who is in the position to hire you and they're local?
Well, certainly. I'm in Tampa, Florida right now. I I love Florida with all my heart, so I'm trying to stay within the state if at all possible. But yeah, I'm based in Tampa, and I'm a Florida guy.
Right on. Methods, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just curious, Zach, what would be a job that you feel like you weren't working a day of your life at? I mean, I know that you went to go work at Facebook, you did all this stuff now. Obviously, probably a social media company might not be that interested in hiring you at this point, but just, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But as far as like, what would Zach want to do with his time? Like, what kind of work would you like to be doing?
Oh yeah, music is my primary passion in life. The only reason that I didn't go, school for music or anything like that is because there's not much money to be made in it, unfortunately. And I always felt like I would, feel better with it as a quote unquote hobby. But I mean, in a perfect world, I would love to be in a studio environment, engineer, that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm a musician through and through. So.
We got people in the chat wondering if you would be willing to teach their kids. Would you ever consider teaching music or just the production?
I could teach production. I'm not the best piano player. My only regret is that I didn't continue the piano lessons I had when I was a kid. I'm not a very good, I guess you say, the motor skills, so to speak. So
yeah, all thumbs.
Yeah, I let the sequencer do the talking.
There you go. That's easy.
I can get that because I grew up around a cousin who had a bunch of friends that were all into music stuff. So they ended up going to college for it, the engineering side, and I would always visit them during the summer when they were still doing like projects and stuff. And they would have to schedule certain amounts of time in the studios. You had to do a certain amount of hours when you're in college and all that stuff. So I would go do the overnights because they always wanted to book the late night hours to get the good studio. So they would go in there and work on music and stuff. So I was around it a bunch, but just like how you said about piano, I wish I paid more attention because I love music. I'm all about it. But, it's one of those things, if you didn't start young and not work for a long time, it's kind of hard to pick up.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think so.
Was there any aspect of your experience uncovering this information that hasn't come up yet, or anything that you felt really stuck out that you think it's necessary for people to know and understand?
Yeah, I think one of the most dangerous and important things that had to do with this story that I think hasn't really been talked about enough is, like I said, a downright dangerous exception to their violence and their threats of violence policies regarding specifically threats of violence against people who are on their Facebooks, that is, on their dangerous and hate individuals list. This is a list that kind of famously encapsulates all the good political dissidents that they banned over the years, like
yes,
Gavin McInnes, and implicated is also Alex Jones, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's actually an exception in their policy, their violence and harassment policy, about making death threats against people who are on that list. And the people that are on that list, it would make some semblance of sense for this to be the case, because most of the people on that list are like violent political extremists. Adolf Hitler is on the list, for instance, of course. A number of other like violent people throughout history on the list. So it kind of makes some semblance of sense that you would allow people to make quote unquote death threats against people like that. Although I think that's illegal anyway. But people don't realize that on that list are included people like Gavin McInnes, Faith Goldie's on that list, a bunch of other political dissidents. Basically, all of InfoWars is implicated because they're also banned. They're considered a hate org. And Paul Joseph Watson broke this story, I think, about a year ago. He said that himself and a number of other people are basically allowed to make death threats on the platform. And this was a big story for, I think, about like a week or two. And then Facebook had apparently removed that clause from their public policy. So updates to the story were made, and people thought that due to the backlash, Facebook actually rolled back that exception to allow death threats against these people. But in reality, because I was a moderator and I saw the internal policy that was given to moderators, that bit was still in there, absolutely. And it was until the day that I left, it may still be the case to this day, that you can make essentially death threats against, folks like Paul Joseph Watson, Milo Yiannopoulos, etc.
So yeah, I'm listening to you here because, like, the bringing up the Hitler thing, for example, obviously people, a lot of people would agree, if you call out Hitler, most people will agree with that. But when Trump got elected, what I noticed, one of the first things that happened was they just had a Rolodex of titles calling him things, sexist, all those things. They went off and they called him a Nazi. And it basically, when I think about it now, and maybe you can agree with me on this, like how they paint MAGA people, Trump supporters, even the QAnon movement, that thing as well, that fits the mold of what they're saying is the exception to the rule, that they are allowed to be essentially threatened, right?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you mean, because even though they're not actually on this list, they're often, compared on the same level as folks like this. And certainly there are people on these lists that are basically innocuous. Gavin McInnes is a comedian, for instance. Maybe he's offensive, but he's a comedian. He's never hurt anybody. He's not violent. But right. I guess because he had some association with the Proud Boys at one point, he's now a dangerous individual on the same level as, like we said, Hitler. It's really absurd, and like I said, I think it's really dangerous for this to be the case. You consider as well that Facebook is in charge of the people who are on this list, so you could stretch things a bit to say that Facebook essentially is in charge of who isn't allowed to have death threats made against them on their platforms.
All right. Okay. Well, I have to ask you this, and I don't know. Red Bull, cut me off if I can. No, go ahead. You ended this job in February, right, of this year?
Yeah, it was the end of February.
Okay, and you were there for how long again? I'm sorry.
So that would have been a year and a month.
Year and a month. So you're a content moderator. How many notes, and essentially, what was your experience on having to keep an eye on the QAnon movement? Because that definitely would be in your purview at your job to at least monitor, because they said they've been monitoring QAnon for a while. What was your experience when it comes to QAnon?
Well, it's interesting that they say that, because I didn't really see much QAnon content while I was there. Maybe a couple of posts here and there by pure chance. But I think it's very interesting. I hadn't heard that before. If they were monitoring QAnon content on their platform, it must have been some AI department or some policy department at Facebook HQ. It's definitely something that's getting cracked down a lot more lately. Of course, Twitter has famously bans QAnon content as well.
Yeah, because when they came out, because like I said earlier, like Twitter is more my wheelhouse. When they made the announcement that they were going to just start coming down on QAnon accounts, and they have. I mean, we watch every week. We're seeing people getting taken down or getting strikes on their pages. Any moment we could sign in and be just taken off and wiped all the work that we've done on our pages. But as soon as that came out, the next question about was what was Facebook going to do? And Facebook said that they had been monitoring. That was a part of it. That's where I learned about it. But they also just recently took down, and you weren't there, so I mean, you didn't know about it, I guess. They just took down a Facebook group that was, I believe, Red Pill, was it 200,000 people?
200,000 people, yep.
200,000 people in a QAnon group, and they just got rid of it. How do you, I mean, first off, what do you think about QAnon? Have you looked into it much? I mean, how do you feel about it in general?
I had been familiar vaguely with QAnon phenomena since, I guess since it really started taking off on I guess it was on Poll and 8chan, and then I think 8chan. I'm probably not I'm not the authority on this. So I'm probably gonna make people mad if I talk about it.
No, we understand entirely, Zach. We all have our different levels and stuff like that. But so far, so good. It did start on Poll, so
yeah, it started on Poll and 8chan, and then 8chan went under, and then now they're 8kun, and they're getting like DDoSed every day. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, I never really followed the QAnon stuff, but I'm starting to see it on Twitter a lot lately. I guess until this recent thing, and right after the story came out, the most that I could say about QAnon, right after my story came out, I saw like a a ton of like Q people, so to speak, like following me, commenting on the stuff, giving me a lot of support. So it was really interesting.
Right, because I mean, we do have at least, I mean, especially on Twitter, like we're all connected in one way. We all follow certain people. We know where to find the information. So as soon as somebody is like, "Oh, there's this Zach guy. He's speaking truth. He's a whistleblower. We can relate to him on that. We need to support him," because they try to make us out to be monsters. They even compared us to ISIS recently, which was pretty hilarious. But we want to support our own. So when we see somebody, like, we would essentially consider you a part of the Patriot family. Like, you're trying to do the right thing. You saw something that wasn't right. You were given the opportunity to do it. You said it was a passion of yours to, against tech censorship. So that's why you got that, probably, was the support, because we all want things to be corrected.
That's great to hear. I'm happy to hear that.
Just want to say, while we were live on the air, PayPal shut my account down. They did, yeah. This is not the first time it's happened. They asked me to verify my status as a taxpayer. I've already done that on numerous occasions, but once I did that, 2 donations did just come through. One from Kelly. She said, "God bless your channel," and then Emily. So if anybody out there had tried to donate to PayPal and it didn't allow them to, if you guys would try and let me know if it's working so I can see it happen in real time. I don't know if I'm even going to be able to access anything people have sent me already, but I will tell you this. If you want to just be safe, you can always use the Cash App. The Cash App is immediate. There are no fees. Cash App, to my knowledge, has never shut anybody down for their political speech or anything like that. But man, I missed out on that whole conversation about Q. I wanted to get in on that. But yeah, that's okay. That's no problem. Okay, well, let's talk about what you're doing in the meantime until you do have a job that comes through. I see that you have a GoFundMe, and I included a link to that GoFundMe in the description of the video. But did you set that up, or did someone set that up on your behalf?
Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind of you. It was not something that I really wanted to do in the first place, because I'm the kind of guy that really wants to work for his money. But it was a very unique situation coming on the heels of Corona and all that as well. It was very uncertain what was going to happen, to me after that, because obviously after you come out as a whistleblower, it kind of makes employers trusting you a little difficult, sure. I guess. But we had set up I had set up the GoFundMe in the wake of the story, and Project Veritas was kind enough to promote it as well. And the outpouring of support there has been nothing like I've ever seen in my life. It was really flooring and humbling, and to this day I really wish I could thank every single person that donated personally. But I guess the updates that I made so far will have to suffice. But I'll say again, to anybody who has done or will do, or even just appreciated the story, thank you so much.
Definitely. Let me just say real quick, thank you to Susie. Thank you to Cheryl for joining Cash App, because we both got $5 for free when she did that. Also, Steve, thank you. He says, "Thanks for all your hard work, man. I appreciate it." And Cheryl said the exact same thing. Thank you for all your hard work. I appreciate that too. All right. So actually, since you're down in Florida, there's a lot of commentary in mainstream media right now about how coronavirus is exploding in Florida. Ron DeSantis has done such a disservice to the people of Florida. What's it like down there in Florida right now? Is it anywhere near what they're saying?
Well, I don't know anyone with it, and I would say that. I guess I haven't been in the hospital, so I can't say. Well, what it's like in the day-to-day life, I think it's still statewide mandated to wear a mask. So you are legally required to wear a mask in all businesses here, and most of them are open. So as opposed to some states where a lot of businesses are still closed, but they don't really make you wear a mask, we have basically all of our businesses are open, but you do have to wear a mask, which I think I prefer it. I think I prefer it that way at the end of the day, because I still want to get, my groceries. I still want to get this and that. So.
Sure. But it's not like everything's shut down, like people are unable to go about their lives. I mean, people are on the beach, people are visiting businesses, everything.
Oh, yeah. We were one of the first, I think, to opened back up after the initial, quarantine orders and all that. Yeah, we were, Florida, I like to think, is one of the most free states in the country. So we had a pretty easy time with it, fortunately, even though the numbers have, been suggested that, we've got like the worst outbreaks and the worst cases. But
do you even know anyone who has it? Or know anyone who says they know anyone?
I don't know anyone currently who has it. I know one person who did have it, but they kind of like recovered without noticing any symptoms. I think this person was from New York, so that was a big initial. That was an initial like hotbed of activity. So perhaps not surprising that was the case.
Still a hotbed.
I do know. Yeah, I do know, without revealing details for respect. I do know someone. One of my best friends, his mom passed away of COVID. Apparently, she was out of the country, and I think it was an unfortunate situation with inability to access care at the right time, which is really unfortunate.
I'm so sorry to hear that. That's awful. Seeker Peace Wolf just joined on Patreon. She said, "Hey, Red Pill just joined," or maybe it's a he. "So excited to be able to help you continue your excellent reporting. Kudos to your hard work, fact-checking, aka sauce, and such a refreshing way of sharing information with patriots. Began watching your show Quarantine from day one, and I've been hooked ever since. God bless. Where we go, when we go all." Good stuff. So
the good old days.
The good old days. Do you have any plans to do anything else with Project Veritas? Do you know if they're going to be, maybe making any more use of any of the additional footage that you got?
Oh, well, we'll have to see. I definitely would love to see, more of that footage used, more of the stories to come out. As far as my relationship with PV is concerned, I think it's an open sort of situation. They've got my number, I've got theirs. I'm certainly willing and happy to speak in much the same capacity as the Pinterest whistleblower did, Eric. He's a good friend of mine. To give speeches, do this and that. Basically be. I think my Twitter bio says that I'm an America First advocate and a free speech advocate too, as well, basically. Tech censorship, like I said, it's my biggest political passion. So anything that I can do to further this would be very important to me.
How about testifying before Congress? Have you received an invitation, or have you thought about reaching out?
As I've been saying, I'm enthusiastic. I'm wholeheartedly willing to come and testify and speak nothing but the truth about what I saw. I think that'll be a big boost to getting some action and substantive change underway. There are no concrete plans right now. Talks have been had over the past few months, but no definite plans to share with you at the moment, unfortunately.
All right, because I was hoping that Matt Gaetz. I mean, going after Zuckerberg directly, I was thinking, because he's in Florida, maybe it would be more likely that we'd get you up there.
Right.
Well, if Matt's watching this for some reason, please have me up there.
Yeah, him and his Johnny Bravo hair is probably not watching right now, but that's fine. But no, we do see a lot of it ramping up around social media, because AG Barr's been talking about it last few months, said he's looking at taking action. Section 230 is under fire right now. And then we had the hearing recently that we all watched or tried to get through. Like, what's your thought on Section 230 in general?
Yeah, absolutely. Section 230 is the route to take with this. I'm very happy to see people talking about it again, because it's been talked about before, but we're kind of getting serious about it now. And I'm really glad to see. Well, I was really glad to see the executive order that Trump did. That Trump had made, and seeing it being talked about a lot more is, I think, a good step in the right direction. But one big thing I saw recently was actually the day of the hearing, and I feel absolutely horrible. I forget the man's name. Let me see. It was Paul Gosar had introduced, along with many others, a legislation calling for crucial Section 230 reform, and directly, that was what it was about. It was about Section 230. And in fact, it proposed a precisely the change that would be needed to Section 230 to fix all this stuff, or at least to set up the framework for disallowing these big tech monsters to continue to abuse their power. So I think, like I said, I think Section 230 is the best route to take. There are other things that we can do. The whole antitrust thing is going on, and that'll lead wherever it leads, if it leads somewhere. But I think the strongest path is probably Section 230.
Now, do you think that if Facebook, from the time that you worked there, the content that you had to moderate, if they're held accountable for that stuff being posted on their platform, do you think they crumble under the weight of their own corruption?
Yeah, they'd be kneecapped with lawsuits. Absolutely, I think because there's no shortage of people who want to come after them for this stuff. There's no shortage of political dissidents who, if given the opportunity, wouldn't get justice. We'll say that, and I think if we're allowed for people to do that, which is basically what would happen if Section 230 were reformed and they didn't clean up their act, then they would basically crumble, they'd disintegrate, they wouldn't be anymore. Which is what makes me think that it probably won't come to that. If Section 230 is reformed, I think they probably, this is maybe a little too hopeful, but I think probably most likely they would actually just clean up their act rather than face being sued into oblivion.
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, since the reformation of Section 230 was mentioned, I mean, they've almost leaned into it. They've gotten more hardcore with the things that they're censoring. I mean, they've had additional groups taken out. We've had President Trump's Twitter account just limited the other day as a result of talking about a medication that's, very old and trusted and even over the counter in some countries.
Well, the reason that they do that is because they've been emboldened. They have gotten away with it for so long that they feel like they can just get away with it every time they do it. And this, got to hold people accountable. This has a lot to do with the GOP. This has a lot to do with people on the right who have not held their feet to the fire. This is so overdue. What we're doing right now is so badly overdue. And I don't want to be pessimistic, but maybe too late. I mean, we're really cutting it close with the election. This is something that needed to be done a long time ago. And like I said, the reason that they're doing this, I think, is because they've been emboldened by the inaction that has been the case for the years up until now.
And we also have the candidate that they have propped up to go against Trump is by far the worst option that they have right now. So they have to double down during these times of censoring the funny memes from the right, the truth bombs about Joe Biden and Ukraine, Hunter Biden, all the corruption with Spygate, because that was also under his watch as being vice president. They have to cover these things up, right? The best they can. So we get into this election situation, they pretty much have to go, censorship or bust.
Yeah, I think beyond past just being emboldened, period, their motivations there could be any number of motivations. It could be bad. It could be, maybe they just want to do as much damage and wreck as much stuff as possible before they're held accountable and they have to stop doing that. It could be any number of things, but I think that's definitely possible.
Yeah, I can get on board with that because there's been a lot of conversation lately that I see by people when they question all these actions that are being taken by, let's just say, state governments with how they're handling the virus and social media and what they're doing. It does feel like they know what's coming. They know Trump would win in a fair election landslide. Essentially, at least in my opinion, Trump would win way better than he did in 2016. And now they're just basically destroying everything they can to stop things for progressing at all.
As dirty a fight as it was in 2016, it's going to be a dirtier fight this time around.
Well said.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, we are coming to the end of the program. So, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? And I want to give you the last word in terms of what you want the audience to take away.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Well, you can reach me. You can reach me at Zak Mcelroy, ZakMcelroy. Tripping over my words. ZakMcelroy at protonmail.com. My Twitter is at Zak with an H. MCE, and that's about it for now. I think I've got a Telegram channel, but I'm not using it at all at the moment. So I've got to expand. I think when I expand, I'll probably post about it on Twitter. So that's where you'll find it. Follow me on Twitter, I guess.
All right, good stuff.
But yeah, as for one last message, I would say that the most important thing that I could say as an insider is, and we've touched on it before, it's critically important for other people to do what I did. The stuff is all on the inside, and it doesn't get out unless somebody like me comes forward and says, this is what's going on, you need to know about it. So if you're on the inside of a big tech company or any other company that's abusing their power for political gain, you or anybody you know is in that position. I would say the best people to reach out to, and not only are they the best people, they're also the only people. So I hope that they're the best people to reach out to would be Project Veritas. I think I can confidently say that they'll do you right because they did me right. The support that I had is, too much to get into the last couple minutes that we have, but they had an incredible network of support during the operations and leading up to the story, and even after the story was released. It's all been great. You'll be kept safe in more ways than one. So I think it's important to have insiders come out. So yeah, check out Project Veritas if you don't already.
All right. Well, I think everybody here probably is well aware of them. We love covering them. Zach, thank you once again for having the courage and the bravery to bring this information to the forefront, to step out of line and risk everything that you put on in your life just to make sure that we can overcome this tech censorship. It is vitally important as we move towards the election, and I don't think there's any other way you can say it. I mean, something has to be done, and it has to be done as soon as possible, because if we just let it continue, then they are going to do everything they can to steal the election and to silence all of us, and none of us may have an account for very long. So I'm going to go ahead and drop Zach's GoFundMe one more time into the chat, you guys. If you feel like supporting him, if you think he's done some excellent work, then please, by all means, go there and give him the support he deserves. Thank you to everybody who participated in the show tonight. Appreciate you guys keeping the chat comfy. Methods, as always, thanks for the great show. Zach, once again, I appreciate you being here. Good luck, everyone, and God bless. We'll see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. for another edition of Red Pill News.